I'm out here at the park with Nina, and I was just thinking about this. What if your first job was your family? Like literally at the same level as the one that is like paying you. What if it was your family? Like what secondary job, the one that pays you, would you have? And if you're somebody like me that is called into service, you know, to serve people, to help people, to run alongside people, what if your number one service was your family? Like, how would you treat them differently? How would you show up differently? How would you hold space in your house differently if they were your number one service? If that was your number one job? How would you structure your day? What would you do first? What would you do last? There's something to think about. Yes, yes, yes. Hug. Nini, hug. For me, I will make sure that I have quality time with each one of them and with them collectively. I'll make sure that they know that I love them. I'll make sure that I prioritize them in the morning, meaning that I'm not more busy about getting ready and going to work, but that I actually am busy with being there for them and doing something with them to show them that they are important, to show them that I see them, that I hear them. That's how I would show up differently. When it comes to service, I would treat them a little bit differently. I would almost have like a file per kid, right? Where I get to really remember, what do they like? What do they don't like? What are their triggers? What are things that I want to work on in my way of showing up for them? What are their goals? What are their dreams? What are their fears? Because we might know them as parents, right? As dads. But, you know, you forget. Life gets busy. And when you're like me and you have 6, there's a lot of things to remember. You know, and sometimes you're not putting the mental space to think about the challenges that each one has and how can you support them, right? But if you go and you actually treat it like, this is my number one service, this is my number one job, you will show up differently. You will have almost like a folder, a binder per kid, where you get to see like, what have I done with this one? What does he like? What does she like? What is she afraid? What is he's afraid of? What are his trigger? You know, so that you can actually show up differently. You can actually see data and facts, right? That's how I will show up differently. That's how I'm deciding to show up differently, because they matter, and they're my number one job, my family, and they're my number one service, my family. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I've not always been like this, not because I've not wanted, just because I didn't have eyes to see and my heart wasn't open enough. my heart required a lot of blasting off and crowbarred and nuked to be fully open and tender, to be able to see and feel. But once you see and feel, you can no longer unsee it, unfeel. You know? And so that's how I'm deciding to show up differently. That's how I've decided to show up differently. And again, transformation and decision happen by default. Somebody's going to crowbar your heart, or life is going to humble you. Or by decision. You get to hear somebody like me talk and share his experience. And you get to analyze, where am I at? Like, how am I showing up for my family? How am I showing up for my kids? How we are businessmen to have a family, but family men to have a business. The energy is different. When your family comes after your call to serve or your job, and you're tired and your energy is low, what are they actually getting? You can't get, because when you do, it's manufactured, it's not real. And they can feel it. And it feels like it's never enough for them, even though you feel like you're giving so much. And for them, it feels like it's never enough. And it's never enough because there's no potency. You know, it's like, you know, we talk about like quality of food, right? You know, at some food you eat, you're like, man, I never feel full. And then you go to like other places in the world and you eat less and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so full and I ate less. It's because the potency of the food, the quality of the food, right? The quantity might be less, but the potency of the food is more, and therefore you get fuller with less. That's the same thing. If you give from lack or from not enough, it never gets them full, and you feel like you're giving, you know, quantity so much, but the actual quality of the food, the quality of what you're giving is not there. And so they never feel full, feel like you can't give more. So just think about that. What would your job look like if they were the first job? What would service look like if they were your number one service?